Hello and welcome. We hope you really enjoy ESPC 20 Online. It is a pleasure to introduce you to this session about Microsoft Power Automate, delivered by Vlad Catrinescu.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this session on creating approval flows with Microsoft Power Automate. My name is Vlad Catrinescu, and I'm a Microsoft MVP from Montreal, Canada, as well as an MCT regional lead. I work as a product evangelist for a company called Valo Intranet, and I'm also a Pluralsight author. For those of you who never heard about Pluralsight, it's an online, on-demand training site. They have about 8,000 courses on almost everything you can do in tech, so check them out. And I'm also the author of 3 real books which have nothing to do with today's subject. 2 of them are about SharePoint on premises, and one of them is about PowerShell for Office 365. For those of you on Twitter, you can find me at Vlad Catrinescu, and I also blog at vladtalkstech.com. So in this session, we will be talking about Microsoft Power Automate. Before we get into the approvals and into all of that fun stuff, let's just do a quick recap of the basics. First of all, what is Microsoft Power Automate? Microsoft Power Automate is a cloud-based tool, part of the Power Platform that allows business users to create and automate workflows and tasks across multiple applications and services, both inside the Microsoft stack as well as third-party applications such as Salesforce, Google Drive, MailChimp, and more. Also, a quick bit of history. Microsoft Power Automate was called Microsoft Flow originally, and it got renamed to Microsoft Power Automate about a year ago at Ignite 2019 in order to better fit with the Power Platform branding. Before that, it was called Microsoft Flow. So that's why on some articles online, or when you Google for stuff, you might see Microsoft Flow in some places. It's the same thing. Before, it was a bit natural that in Microsoft Flow, you create flows. Well, now, even in Power Automate, you still create flows, and we spell those with a lowercase f in order to avoid the confusion with the previous product name. So let's get started talking about some of the terms and concepts in Microsoft Power Automate. First of all, what do we have inside of a flow? The first part is the trigger. Each flow has one and only one trigger, and this is basically what triggers the flow. It can be something automatic. For example, in this screenshot, we will trigger the flow as soon as an item is created in a SharePoint list. A trigger can also be manual, for example, on the push of a button, or manually launched on a selected item. Triggers can also be based on time. For example, you can trigger a flow to run every night at 1 a.m. Next up, a flow will most likely have multiple actions. Those are really the actions that your flow is going to do, such as starting an approval, sending an email, copying a file, and so on. And we can also have things such as conditions. So in case we have an approval here, we want to have a condition if the answer is approved or rejected, and do different actions based on the outcome. Microsoft Power Automate also comes with a wide array of templates you can use and customize to build the workflow capabilities that you need. The templates can serve both as a quick start guide and a learning tool, and you can use the templates either as is or customize them to fit your needs. Something that you will use every time that you create a Microsoft Power Automate flow are connectors. Connectors are all of the different services that a flow connects to in order to accomplish a task. Those services can either be internal Microsoft 365, so for example, SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, Outlook, Planner, and so on, but also external third-party services such as Twitter, Salesforce, Dropbox, Google Drive, MailChimp, and more. When going to the Power Automate Center, you will find your flows under 4 different headings. First of all, you will have My Flows. Those are the flows that you have created and you have not shared with anybody. Only your account has access to modify them. You then have Team Flows. Team flows are all of the flows that you are an owner of, but are also shared with other people. Next, we have business process flows. Those flows are way more advanced and allow you to guide people to get work done in a more standardized process. They are very tied into Dynamics 365 and Power Apps and are way more customizable than normal flows. Lastly, we have UI flows, which are for robotic process automation. Once you click on a flow, you'll see multiple types of details about this flow. First of all, you will see the name of the flow, a few pictures for the services you are using, as well as the description if you have added one. On the bottom right, you can see all of the different owners of the flow, so who has access to edit it. And lastly, you will see all of the different types the flow has ran, if it was a success or a failure, for how long it ran, and how long ago it ran. So just to recap, the trigger is the event that starts the flow, and actions are everything that your flow does. In a flow, we will also have conditions which allow us to do different actions depending on a value. And finally, we have talked about connectors, which are all of the different services that Microsoft Power Automate connects to. Now that we know the basics, let's start talking approvals in Microsoft Power Automate, and let's really focus on demos from now on. And let's start with our first demo and check out the very basics of approvals in Microsoft Power Automate. We are now in the lab environment, and here I have just a basic SharePoint list in a site called Training Requests. So what do I have in this list? I simply have an employee ID column, conference name, conference website, conference date, the justification and request, estimated cost, and the conference location. So what we want to build in this first quick demo is simply an approval. When employees request a training, it goes through an approval process. So I have already opened Microsoft Power Automate here, so flow.microsoft.com, and let's create our flow from scratch. So I will do my flow, I will do it automated from blank, and we'll call it training request approval. And what is our trigger? When an item is created. So let's click on create. Great, now I need to fill in the blanks. So what is the site address? Let's copy paste the URL over here. I will go to enter custom value and enter it. And then the list name is training request. So let's start with the basics. First thing I will do is I will search for approval. And in order to see all of the options that we have for approvals, I will click here the approvals connector so I can see all of them at once. And let me actually zoom in just a little bit so we can make sure that we see everything clearly. So as you can see, I have three options: create an approval, start and wait for an approval, and wait for an approval. Now, the number 1 and number 3 go together, while number 2 here is the one that you will use most of the time. So what is the difference? Number 2 here, start and wait for an approval, will actually start the approval and wait for the necessary answers to be received before it continues to the next steps. So most of the time, that's what you want, right? Start an approval, wait to see what the outcome is, and depending on the outcome, do other actions. However, you might have different business cases where you might need to start other processes, do other things before that approval answer outcome is needed. And with Power Automate, you can create the approval, so kick off that approval process, and then have to wait for an approval later in your workflow. So that can allow you to do a few things until that answer is absolutely needed. But again, in my experience, start and wait for an approval is the one that I've been using 99.9% of the time. So let's go in here, start and wait for an approval. Let's select this one. And then first thing I need to choose is the approval type. So the first options that I have, approve or reject, everyone must approve, and then approve and reject first to respond. So again, those two, the differences, what will happen is that if you need, let's say, 5 people to approve a purchase order or a purchase, I would maybe put everyone must approve. This way, I need that approval from all of those 5 people before going forward. But first one to respond, maybe I need to purchase something and I need anyone from the IT department to approve it. So if it doesn't matter, as long as one of those 5 people answers, I can put first one to respond, and as soon as I get that first approval, I'm good to go. In my case, I will only have one approval, so it doesn't really matter which one I would choose. Another 2 options, but in a way it's really one option, is the custom responses. Not every single approval flow actually has approve or reject. You might want to have other options, for example, approve, reject, need more information. Or you might really want to offer your users 3, 4, 5 different answer possibilities and then have different actions based on that answer. And this is where the custom responses option comes in. But for now, let's start with the basics. Let me go to approve or reject. Everyone must approve. And then, depending on the choice I have here, I will have different options that appear. But again, let's keep it simple for the first one. Let's add the title. When I click in the title column, I'll have my dynamic content that pops up here on the right. So let's say I will do I'll search here, created by display name. So the person who requested the training needs approval for a training. Who do I assign it to? Again, I will just add to, actually let me add it to Vanessa here. So to Vanessa Lee, who will be the approver, and then I can add details. The really cool thing with approvals and Power Automate is that I can add a bunch of details in there. So I can say, let me start here with created by display name, has requested a training code, and we had one here, I think it was conference name. Let's put conference location at the happening on conference date. Great. The cost is, and let's go for cost here, estimated training cost. Perfect. There is also an estimated, let's put the travel cost here. Please approve or deny the request. Great, so now people might not even have to go to that list item if they want to get details. They might really be able to just take a lot more information directly from that Power Automate approval. And we really want, as we create those approvals, provide as much information as possible so people can get it in that approval instead of having to go to the item every single time. Talking about going to the item link and item link description here allows you to really give a quick link to the person so they can go to that training request. So under item link, I will search for link and I have a link to the item. And then the description, I will put click here to view the full request. Great. So this is the start and wait for the approval. And then what do I need? I need a condition. What do I want to condition on? So I'll say if the outcome of the approval is equal to approve, and then if yes, maybe I will send an email. So let me search for email here. Send an email. I will send it to who? To the person that requested the training. Sometimes, by the way, you might need to click this icon here, switch to advanced mode, and that will show you the dynamic content. So I'll say to create it by email, your training has been approved. And of course, we can add a body and everything, but I will not do it in the interest of time. And then let me send an email over here again to who? To the person that requested the training. Your training has been denied. Great. So let's body. Sorry. There we go. Do I have to I'll put a body here, put on yay. Great. Now let me save it and let's run it. Give a few seconds for it to save. Perfect. Now let me go here in training request, give it a quick refresh, click on new. Employee ID 007, that's my employee ID. Conference will be ESPC 20 online. Let me copy and paste the link here, sharepointeurope.com. Conference date will be on October 14th. So let me click on the little calendar here. We will go to next month and select October 14th. I'll put this as an amazing conference and it's super good value. The cost of training will be about $50. Estimated travel cost 0 because it's an online conference, and conference location online. Now I will click on save. We have added the request to our list, and it will take between 10 seconds and 5 minutes, depending on how much the demagogues and Microsoft 365 likes you that day for this to get started. So I'll just pause the recording until it starts. Awesome, the flow has started here. You can see it started 10 seconds ago. And we can actually click on it to see where we're at in that flow. So you see when an item got created, and now we're waiting for that approval. So remember, our approver was Vanessa Lee, and I'm actually logged in as Vanessa Lee here in this other window. First things first, you notice I have an email and the title is Vlad Catrinescu, which, remember, that's the title. Created by display name, needs approval for a training. Great. And directly from Outlook, I can have requested by Vlad Catrinescu. the date, the details. Vlad Catrinescu has requested a training called Online in Online. Looks like we made a small error in there. Happening on October 14. The cost is 50, and there's also an estimated, and it cut down a bit in here. And I can also click here to view the full request, which would bring me to the training site. Another way I can see all of my current approvals is, again, logged it as Vanessa. I can go into the Power Automate Center under Action Items, Approvals. Here I will see all of the approvals that I need to do something on. And this is super cool in my opinion, because if you don't want to manage them by email, you're the type of person that likes to, at the end of the day, set up a 10, 15, 30 minutes to handle all of the approvals. They will all be in this single location. So you don't have to hunt down in the email all of the different emails you got during the day. You know, you can go to the approval center and see everything that is waiting on you. So let me go here in Vlad Catrinescu needs approval for a training. I can see all of the information here and choose my response. It will be approved, and then I can click on confirm. And if I go back to the Power Automate flow here, we can see everything that happened. It conditioned what happened, the condition was true, and it sent an email to Vlad, your training has been approved. But now what if we want to make it a bit more dynamic? So let's say we don't always want Vanessa Lee here. So I will take off Vanessa Lee, and I will actually add another action in here that says get manager. So I'll go into manager here, get manager, and whose manager do I want to get? I want to get the manager of the person that created the training request. And then in the start and wait for an approval, I will go in what are my options. I will put the manager of the user. This way we don't only have a static flow, but we have a dynamic flow. So really, it will not be always the same person. It will depend on the person who requests it. Also, we can also fix things such as instead of conference location here, we can actually go and get conference name happening in conference location. Oops, I did not put it at the right spot. So let's go here, conference name happening on conference date, and the cost is estimated training cost. There's also an estimated travel cost. There we go. It will look a lot better now. So those are the basics of approvals in Power Automate. Now that we know what our options are, let's create something a bit more advanced and create an approval workflow with reminders. In the interest of time, I have pre-created this workflow, and we're gonna go through all of the details together. So let me click on Edit here, and let's take a look at how the workflow is built. First of all, I have my trigger, which is when a document gets added to a SharePoint list inside the documents library. And let me actually go and add the document right away. Next up, I will get the manager of the user who created the document. And what I will do after is I will create a variable called approved, and I will set it to 0. After that, I will actually start a parallel branch, meaning what you see on the left and on the right side here will be happening at the same time. On the left side, what I have is I have my start and wait for the approval. So start, everybody must approve, goes to the manager for approval. just a basic approval as we have seen before. And after the approval is done, what I will do is I will set the variable approved to 1. It was at 0 before, but now I'm setting it to 1. Now on the right side, what's happening at the same time? First of all, I'm doing a delay. And again, for the purpose of this demo, I'm putting it to 1 minute. So we're really going to spam the approver a lot. So don't do this in production. Maybe set it to days or hours if you need it super quick. But don't set it to 1 minute, as people will really not like you. So I'm setting a delay of 1 minute, and then I'm doing a do until. So do until approved is equal to 1. So keep doing the actions in this loop until the approval here is done. So what am I doing? I'm sending an email to the manager saying like, hello manager, you currently have a document waiting for approval with the name. And I'm also sending them a link to the Action Center so they know about the quick link where they can see all of their approvals. And then I have another delay in here again of 1 minute inside of the loop. So this way, sends an email, waits another for this demo 1 minute. You might want to put it way higher for production. And then if it's still not approved, or the variable here approved to 1, it sends another email and goes through the loop again. And that's it on the right side. On the left side, then I just have my if it's approved or not, I send the result. So what does this look like from the end user perspective? So if I go in Vanessa Lee here, you see I actually have my Microsoft Flow. We have a pending approval here. So I have my actual approval. I can of course see it as well inside approvals over here. And then in the email, you see this started at 3:02 p.m. But I have a reminder 1 minute later, another reminder 1 minute later, and probably any time now, I will receive another reminder. So Vanessa will keep getting reminders until that document is either approved or rejected. So let me go in here. I will approve the document. It doesn't matter if I approve it or not. It really will depend on the approval being finished, not the result. And if we take a look at the actual run history, let me go in here. You see it's still running. We can see that on the left side it's done, but here it's probably still waiting in that 1 minute delay. As soon as that 1 minute delay is done, the workflow will be finished. And Vanessa, since we have now actually approved the document, we will not get any more reminders. This is it for this quick demo on how to set up an approval workflow with reminders. Now we should be towards the end of this 30-minute session. I really wish I had more time with you today, but we limited to 30 minutes. So I'd like to say a very big thank you for attending this session at the European SharePoint Conference 2020. I really wish I was in person there with you, but until next time we meet, you can follow me on Twitter, connect with me on LinkedIn, and also have links to my blog and YouTube out there. I really hope you enjoyed this session, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you online until we meet together again at the European SharePoint Conference 2021. Thank you.